on a little magnifique, elite beat. Elite beat. Elite beat.
So
this book is actually a good place to maybe start, because this book is written by Dr. Marlon Bailey. He's a professor at the University of Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
He's a gender studies professor, and he was part of the Detroit ball scene.
Oh, and that was your introduction, right?
And that was my introduction as well.
That was the first question I was going to ask you anyway, so that was the
So this takes me back to the very late 80s, early 90s. I used to be part of a house called House of Charles. Does that exist anymore?
House of Charles.
House of Charles is a very early house.
Okay. Well, don't worry, I know a lot of people.
So I do have one of my pictures on the inside as well. These are the original girls from the House of Charles.
And that's in Detroit.
This is in Detroit, and it's in the early 90s. So in Detroit, the House of Charles started in the late 80s, early 90s. So that's when I first got my first taste of it.
And tell us about it.
Well, you know what? Like a lot of houses that start from the ground up, it all started when Jenny Livingston put out Paris is Burning, right? And then people saw that as at that time, most of the house stuff was happening on the East Coast, New York and Washington and Baltimore and places like that. So when that movie came out, it was the reason, or germinated other places to start their own ball scene. So and it acted as a template, because I think if she did a good job at anything, she did a really good job of breaking down the different parts of, what a house is, the mother, the father, the organizational part of it, and also, what some of the moves and what voguing was all about, and what were the different aspects of voguing. So, people caught on to that template and just started replicating it. So, I don't know if that's the same thing that happened exactly here in Toronto, but I'm sure it had it.
Yeah, because we first seen, of course, like for our generation, I wouldn't say, like for the newer girls, I can only talk for us because I don't really know how the older ones got into it, but we were seeing like finesse voguing, seven voguing around in the club and whatever. That's how most of us got exposed to it.
Right.
And then we went and he showed us Paris is Burning as well, and then after we would also go research it on YouTube and basically try to replicate it, like you just said, what we seen, what we heard, even like the words used, all of those things, the behaviors and all stuff like that. It's very interesting you said that. So when they first started in Detroit, when you first started, what attracted you to it? Literally, what was the first thing that you saw that you said, you know what, I want to photograph that, or I want to be a part of it, whatever?
Well,
what was the first thing?
I think that in the reason why I first started photographing it in Detroit, first of all, Paris is Burning never came to Detroit. It came to Chicago, so we all had to pile into vans and cars, and we all had to drive to Chicago to see the movie. And then And then we came back, and everybody's brain was just kind of exploded over what they had just seen, because it was really kind of something that I think was lacking in Detroit in a way. I think the concept of having a house, of having a structured family outside of your biological family, was a huge eye-opening thing for people. And then most of my friends that were in the House of Charles, you know, they were already my friends, so I kind of got swept. I sort of got swept into it that way. When it started here in Toronto, of course, I learned about it through, obviously, Travoy, who I knew before he started doing House of Monroe. And I said to myself, wow, this is something that I want to insert myself back into in a way, because it was at the very ground floor, right? And so as a photographer, one of the things that I like to photograph or do in my photography is documentation, because history is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say when it comes to documenting, there's plenty of documentation for, I would say, white gay history, but there's not a lot of documentation for black gay history. Not good documentation. Okay,
wow, okay,
right?
You hate that.
And that I'm not saying that my photographs are fantastic or whatever, but it, you know, I just feel this need to make that my contribution in the community. And so it started from there. But then once I started going to the balls, I remember the first ball, it was down on the west side somewhere in the back room of a bar. I can't remember the name of the place.
Which one? What were we wearing? I'll give you the name. Club Z? Was it Club Z with the fin like a daisy? Was it black?
No, it was the
Concord Cafe.
Yeah,
Concord Cafe. Playpen.
Right, Playpen.
House of Monroe's first house ball.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And I just remember, I knew what to expect, but what I really, really liked about the whole thing was that I knew it was going to be something really different when I watched. This is going to sound weird. When I saw the losers, when the losers went up and hugged the winner, I said to myself, "This is a very different type of event. This is a very different type of social event where people were actually congratulating the winner, even though they had just lost, and put, you know, all their hearts into their effects and how they vogued and how they walked. You know, they probably had spent hours up until that point getting ready for it, and they were still giving a really wonderful congratulations to the winner. And I thought to myself, wow, this is exactly what it's supposed to be about, you know, versus, I know that Shade has a part in Ballroom, and, you know, I think that, you know, we can talk about Shade in a minute, but, you know, I didn't feel any shade that night. I felt a lot of camaraderie, and I felt there was like a lot of love in that room that night that I hadn't seen, like maybe even just going out to a club somewhere.
So like you said, you've been there from the beginning when it was really, and I'm like thinking back when it was literally like no shade in the scene, like at all. There was just, everybody was literally just wanted each other there. You just wanted to fill the room with the girls and like everybody to just have a good time, blah, 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 blah. And nobody was, yeah, I was like hearing that, like listening to that right now, and then thinking about where we're at today, where we are definitely, well, I do kind of put myself in there, of course, I know I'm a person to blame for this, but where we're more about the competition now versus the actual fun factor, whatever. That's for some people. Listening to it is kind of like, that's so true. We could have definitely gone differently, even though we haven't gone too bad yet. We've barely had any like incidents happen at any balls, whatever, the people that who have mostly been affected, it's really only like emotional distress, which is why they're like gone from the scene. The majority of them, nothing really that serious, even though it could be way worse. Like if the girls ever knew the stories of people in the ballroom scene who've like gotten like sliced on their face and like stuff like that. Like we've never had to ever deal with those things in our ballroom scene. So yeah, so
does that happen in like New York?
Yeah, it happened in this year, 2014. Somebody just got sliced in their face, a femme queen at that. But we're not gonna get into that.
Well, I think I think the competition is a good thing. I just think that people just need to remember that everybody puts in their whatever effort they need to put in to get to that moment. You know, I've never walked. I can't even imagine myself walking. To be honest with you, I wouldn't know what to walk.
When you go back executive, there's no shade.
In the book, Marlon refers to me as he identifies me as a white butch queen. I don't really know what that means for me.
Yes, you are. I mean, because we're all butch queens, gay males, and you're just white. I'm a black butch queen.
So there you go. So you know, I was a little floored for a moment when I read that part in the book, because I'm interviewed in the book, and I thought, wow, I'm a white butch queen. That's really cool. But I wouldn't know what to walk. Maybe someday I'll figure it out and I'll actually do it just to say that I did it, you know. But at this point, I'm kind of really happy to be on the other side of the lens. I just think that, you know, everybody puts such a great amount of effort into coming in and competing, and I have noticed, or it does feel like there's a certain amount of bad shade that's creeping in. So let's talk about shade for a minute.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Shade was never really meant to be a nasty thing. Mm-hmm. Like, you could be... When I grew up in Detroit, we were shady to each other all the time. But it was almost like you're picking on your best friend. Shade, right? It was like you would shade only your best friend, you know? It was like a competition as to who could outshade the other person. That was a competition in and of itself, you know. I mean, I was probably, what are some of the oldest shades in the world? Your mama wears army boots. Like, what? You know, like snaps, right? That they called those snaps, right? Where you were being shady, right? But it was never meant to be hurtful or destructive, right? And now I see shade becoming a little bit more serious, and it's disappointing in some ways. I just think that, you know, setting the rules at the beginning and saying, you know, that kind of shade's not acceptable, and, you know, getting back to what shade was supposed to always be about is probably where it needs to go back to before people get sliced. Yeah.
Sorry, I haven't seen some of these pictures right now. I haven't seen some of them, so I'm actually like going off of these pictures. Go off twisted.
So a lot of the pictures. So when you look at my pictures, they do look a little intense. I do that on purpose. I have.
Let's explain that.
Yeah, I've really amped up the color and the saturation in the photographs beyond even what would be considered reasonable by some photographers. But I amped up the color because when you looked at the original pictures, when I got home and I looked at the original pictures, they were cool and they were neat, especially if there was some sort of, physical stunt or whatever done, right? Or like that one where her dress is all, moving and whatnot, you know. But it was, you were kind of like, okay, this is good, but I'm not feeling the ball anymore as much as I was when I was in that moment, right?
Right.
So by amping up the color, it really I think it just electrifies the pictures back into that feeling that you had at the ball, where it's just like, you know, lots of color, lots of creative, you know, ideas happening, and really lots of fast interactive movement.
When I look at the pictures, like I really could feel like I'm in the room
like
at that
you're
time.
Right there at that moment.
Yes,
energy,
yes,
like pulsating.
It comes right off the picture.
What's
so
his name?
That's Spotlight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Spotlight. Yeah. So it's like definitely great, beautiful work. And for those of you who do not know, Christopher Cushman actually published his own book Okay, which features a lot of the photography that is seen. That's basically all of his favorite pictures he put into the book. Yeah, let's talk about your pictures and stuff like that, like how you like to like photograph black male models and whatever. So let's talk about why. I actually want to know why too. Like
why?
Like black culture.
Why black culture?
Yes.
Well, I'm from Detroit.
Oh, duh. How do you think about that?
Right. I'm from Detroit.
That's like 90% black.
It's like more like 98% black. When I went to high school in Detroit, there was only 6 white kids in a school of 1,200. So, you know, if you really want to talk about it, I do have kind of a feeling. I'm not going to say it's exactly the same feeling, but I do have a kind of an understanding of what it's like to be in the smaller part of the pie relative to who, you know, the people around you. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, and you know, I'm a gay man. You know,
you put the two together.
And you put the two together.
Duh, you like sorry,
You know?
put the 3 together. You like photography.
You know,
you're a gay man.
Had I been born in Norway, it might be a different idea. Had I been born in Japan, it might be all Asian men. Who knows?
Okay.
Yeah, who knows?
You actually ate that. I think that's clear. I think it was nice and sweet.
I just think, So yeah, so that's where it came from. I kind of know that, you know, there are people who don't know this about me, don't know these stories.
I mean, they've never asked you.
Exactly.
They've never asked. Yeah, they've never asked me. You know, I think that it's easier sometimes to just kind of pull the trigger from, you know,
The gate.
from the sideline somewhere, instead of just coming up and saying, "Well, why do you do this?" You know, and instead you know, they jump to an assumption or a conclusion, and then they move with it, and then they talk about you. I'm okay with it. It doesn't really bother me. People are going to talk about you in life all the time, and you know, who cares? You know, most of the time when they're talking about you to other people, the other people are thinking, why are you always talking about somebody
that you don't like?
That you don't like.
Like, why are you
Like,
referring
really,
to that?
like,
you ate that.
You know, you can't like me unless you've never spent any time with me, or that you've never sat down and talked to me. You can't possibly like me. Okay? It just doesn't work that way. And so when I hear stories and stuff like that, I you know, it bothers me for a minute, and then it's gone. I let it go. There's no sense in holding on to stuff like that, you know. And again, I don't really have time to not be anybody's friend. I try to be helpful in any way that I possibly can to people. I think karma is real. You know, if you don't think karma's not real, then you're missing the boat big time, because it really is. It's literally, it will come back to you. You know, if you're going to be nice to somebody, that comes back to you. If you're not going to be nice to somebody, that's going to come back to you. So, you know, I figure that those things take care of themselves. You know, and you know, if those people wanted to have their pictures taken, I would take their pictures, even knowing that they've talked ill about me. I don't care. Especially nowadays, where I'm in a position where I have to charge people. I'm actually starting this getting more into this as a business, you know. And I have to say that there have been lots of people that have supported me in this business. Pink ladies.
Hey.
You know, Black Cat. You know, there have been all manner of people that have supported me financially or in other substantive ways, which is all that really matters, right? And it makes me feel that in another way that my work is valued, right? I mean, it's nice that people come and tell me that the work I do is valued, but when people start paying for your work, then you sit there and go, oh,
I have a different
wow.
opinion. It's very true.
Wow, this is
very,
really
very
interesting,
true.
you know?